The Wizards of the Black Circle. Definitely up there with Winx Club's most iconic villains, and honestly, the last ones in the series that I really care about, but they could still be so much more. For my rewrite, they've become the villains of Season 2, after the Winx go on a mission to Earth. They were prepared to stop whatever the Tricks were getting up to, but not to end up caught in the fallout of something their history books left behind. During their mission, they discover the Wizards. These men claim to be the protectors of Earth, but trigger warnings for death and violence and stuff, because these men are not as noble as they want you to believe. Even though I've always liked the Wizards of the Black Circle, there was always something about them that felt weirdly incomplete to me. I'm not entirely sure how to explain it. Maybe it's because all the other villains Winx Club has had up till this point have been very fleshed out and given much more focus when they had their moment. But Season 4 has so much going on between Roxy, the fairy pets, the Earth fairies, and the Wizards, I guess. To me, it just feels like they didn't get enough development beyond being fairy hunters. I also feel like their powers are kind of random. We have Wizard of Absorption, Destruction, Super Speed, and Shapeshifting. All cool powers, but I wish there was more of a through line. Some way for them to feel more united while keeping the variety. I think Gantlos' title in particular sticks out to me as sounding a lot more intimidating than the others. Wizard of Destruction, that just sounds scary, but to me, he's the one that actually stands out the least as a villain, despite his cool hat. The other three all have something about them that sticks out to me that I'll talk about during their redesigns. However, since Gantlos seems to be the least memorable to me personally, I will be using him for plot. I've talked a bit about how the Wizards of my rewrite operate in Naboo and Roxy's videos, but basically they're like a secret society that is dedicated to keeping Earth free from magic after their ancestors fled to the planet post Valtor's rampage. They view themselves as the only people on Earth worthy of wielding magic because they see their cause as righteous. It is their cross to bear and such other phrases. But when they aren't at their secret hideout and playing superhero, they live normal lives. I actually like to imagine the names they go by as wizards are basically code names, but they also have their regular human names. For Gantlos, I imagine him working a very boring, draining corporate job. Definitely middle management. By day, he is an unremarkable man. By night, he overflows with endless confidence as he revels in his secret life. The other wizards do have lives outside of their fantastical calling, at least to a degree, but not Gantlos. He has no other hobbies besides locating anomalies for him and his fellow wizards to track down. Just as a backyard astronomer would rejoice to find a new star, Gantlos feels the same exultation at another target locked. There have been times where he kept this knowledge to himself. Instead of moving out as a group, he closes in on his next victim alone, looking to take their magic to make himself stronger. One of these cases was his discovery of the Tricks. It had been a while since they had encountered any witches, and he wanted their magic all to himself. However, when he confronted them, they were unlike any prey he had ever encountered. These girls had exquisite control over their magic, and they were clearly on a mission. After a brief conversation, he's charmed by their aggression and depravity. The Tricks strike a deal with Gantlos. He will provide them access to the wizard's archives, and they will let him in on their plan to release the greatest magical conqueror of all time. Finally, he has a way to sever himself from his daytime life and fully become the powerful magic wielder that is Gantlos. In his mind, at least. He doesn't believe the other members of his group would be as receptive to their proposition, and though he does care for them to a degree, he desires to have this opportunity all for himself. He's the one that convinces the wizards to work with the Winx, rather than just killing them, so that the Tricks can use them to further their goals. They know that if they can't find Valtor themselves, the Winx will lead them right to him. I really wanted to have some fun with the designs for the Wizards of the Black Circle. You know how people say Bruce Wayne is the mask and Batman is the true identity? That's how I see it for these guys. So even though they're putting on a costume, to them, it feels like taking one off. But yeah, I took the fact that Gantlos is wearing a hat and baby, I just ran with it. We're going full cowboy. And as he thinks his cause is righteous, he sees himself as the hero of an old western. Lone cowboy riding into town and taking out the bad guys that were threatening the peace. Obviously, that's not what he actually is. It's the lens he sees himself through. So he wears these lighter colors in that classic western way of symbolizing good. There's a lot of psychological stuff going on here. The cognitive dissonance of wanting to be both the sheriff and an outlaw, the romanticizing of masculinity, the operating in a team while trying to maintain a lone wolf persona, aspects that all prime him to be a pawn for the tricks. In the original show, the wizards are implied to be incredibly ancient, but in this rewrite, they're living out normal lifespans. The Wizards of the Black Circle were once the personal guards of the leader of the Earth Migration Coalition. Sure, that's what I'll call them, the EMC. Eventually, as her people spread across their new planet and she decided to withdraw to a life of anonymity, her duty to protect these refugees, and thus her authority over them, was passed on to her loyal guards. The Wizards of the Black Circle have existed on Earth for centuries. Not these particular guys, but rather the group as a concept. Over time, their noble vow to protect the Earth from magic has become more of an excuse to hunt down and exterminate any magical being they can. They especially enjoy taking out fairies, as they can take their wings as trophies. Despite being the youngest member of the group, Duman seems to be the cruelest of the current wizards. While other members delight in the discovery or chase or posthumous analysis of those they strike down, Duman revels in the act of striking. He is often the one to deliver the final blow, and he has more blood on his hands than any of his comrades. For Duman, it is impossible to leave his wizard persona in the shadows. He fully embraces the look at all times and is a menace on the streets. He bounces from job to job, either getting fired or quitting, and resorting to criminal behavior often to get by. He lives in a bad part of town, and when there's a lack in magical beings to zero in on, he uses his shape-shifting abilities to attack and maim those in the wrong place at the wrong time. Oh yeah, even though I don't want to officially give them the titles they have in the show, because I think they're a little too corny, and just have them refer to themselves as the Wizards of the Black Circle as a collective, they still definitely have their preferred spells and abilities. Duman loves to shapeshift. He can turn into pretty much anything, but he especially enjoys transforming into wild carnivorous predators. He frequently uses the forms of a lightning-fast harpy eagle, a ruthless bull shark, and a massive spotted hyena. I like that he has favorite animals. Do you think he watches nature documentaries when he's not busy killing people? Anyways, despite his hatred for fairies, Duman does seem to have a confusing affinity for Roxy. Nothing's strong enough to overcome his sadistic urges, but the considerable amount of time he's spent as a beast seems to have made him more susceptible to her magic. However, Roxy's mother's magic had no such effect, and several years ago, Duman was the one to take her life. But soon, Duman will also be meeting his end. In the big fight at the end of the season, when the wizards show their true colors and square up against the Winx and the specialists, Duman will fall to Nabu's magic, just like he did in the original show. As the one who gained the most satisfaction from the violence of their missions, the one who was the most eager to take a life, it only makes sense that he should lose his own. And to the very man they were trying to corrupt and recruit to their cause. Really quick, I would just like to apologize to anyone who's disappointed that I didn't include the return of Earth fairies in this rewrite. I'm trying to really pin down an overarching story that flows smoothly and ties up as many of its own loose ends as it can. And a grand return of an Earth-based magical civilization just doesn't work with the other things I have going on lore-wise. I'm sure there are other fairies and witches hiding out on Earth, scattered far and few between. The wizards had to be hunting someone, after all, but there is no ancient population of fairies trapped within a magical seal for us to release. When these wizards find fairies, they just kill them. Actually, for this rewrite, what the Black Circle in their name refers to is the giant portal through which the original Earth Migration Coalition traveled all those centuries ago. I tried to allude to it when I described the specialist ship flying through the portal in Nabu's video. I don't know if that really counts as foreshadowing, but I tried. Anyways, Duman was so fun to draw. I love the mohawk and the skirt and the crop top. I tried to give him a punk kind of look with stretched ears and an industrial piercing. I also made him real skinny with a face like the Joker. He's unsettling. His hair is more red so it wouldn't be so close to Roxy's, and it's a little little fluffier than the original, with these like sideburn thingies that I love, but I don't really know what they're called. Of course, I kept him in that skirt. How could I not? And since most of the time when he's fighting or committing crimes, he's transformed into some kind of animal, it doesn't really matter what he wears. All of his favorite animals to take the form of are species where the female is larger and more deadly than the male, so do with that what you will. I don't think he's thought about it much though. Out of the four of these guys, Duman's wizard outfit is the closest to how he dresses in his day-to-day life, but mostly because in his day-to-day life, he's still kind of a scumbag. And I'm not saying all punks are scumbags. Honestly, if they are, it's probably what they're going for. I just mean that he doesn't exactly have to worry about dressing business casual like Gantlos does. Anagan at first seems to be the most well-adjusted of the wizards.
Hello.
But honestly, it is a very low bar. I'm not sure what his day-to-day job would be. At first I was thinking maybe he would be some kind of athlete somehow, cause run fast. But then I thought, what if his day job is actually one where he doesn't get much opportunity to move at all? I think it would be really funny if he was like a graphic designer or something. I don't know why, but I see it. He's the member of the group with the closest thing to a real social life. He has friends other than his fellow wizards that he hangs out with often enough on nights where he isn't going out to the secret clubhouse. Well, they consider themselves to be his friends, at least. Not sure if he really cares for them or only sees them as part of his cover. It seems like the only people the Wizards of the Black Circle truly value are the Wizards of the Black Circle. One of Anagan's most memorable moments, or maybe just most fixated on by fan moments, is when he sort of flirts with Flora.
The nature fairy. If we weren't sworn enemies, you'd be my favorite.
Nice of you to say.
Good thing the Winx are still aging normally at this point and haven't regressed to being teens again yet. Considering how Anagan seems to enjoy being on the receiving side of friendships, I'm sure he's had a few girlfriends in the past. Always looking to meet someone and indulge in the beginning stages of relationships, but never feeling invested enough to actually value it as anything more than entertainment. I guess he just likes the chase, which makes sense because that's also his favorite part of his business with the wizards. After Gantlos finds a new target, Anagan is the one who tracks them and wears them down until they don't have the energy to run any longer. He does utilize super speed, but almost more as a psychological weapon. No matter how safe you think you are, you know how fast he moves and that he could appear around any corner at any second. I always felt like they gave Anagan the lamest power out of all of the wizards, to be honest. He just runs fast. According to the wiki, it's actually more like he's slowing down time and moving at his own normal speed as opposed to enhancing his body to move more powerfully, but I always thought it was the latter. It's kind of like how I see the Speed Force versus Compound V, I guess. It's just, compared to the other wizards, it's too bland, too straightforward. All the other titles have so much room to play or are just more intimidating. I do like Anagan's personality though. He seems cocky but still capable enough that it doesn't feel unearned. He seems like he's having fun with his job. I've been trying to give all these guys different subcultures as inspiration for their outfits, and Anagan ended up with the most classically goth style. I was going for a romantic or vampire goth to tie in with him being more social than the others and more able to pass as normal. So he got the most quote-unquote normal kind of goth, if that even is a thing that can be possible. I guess it's not. You guys know what I mean. A lot of people, when they hear goth, they think this. Also, sorry if my voice got really annoying in the middle of this section. Allergies are kicking my ass this year. Anyways, so I really wanted this outfit to be all black, but it's kind of hard for me to do all black looks without it just becoming a big dark blob. I guess that's just the nature of this art style, this 2D art style that I'm doing. Minimal shading, stuff like that. So please let me know in the comments if I succeeded. I did end up making his pants, like, I tried to make them that shiny PVC material, but I wasn't sure how to stylize it, so it doesn't really match with the rest of the other designs, so please just ignore that. Anagan's original outfit has this big long coat with an upturned collar, and that silhouette was what led me in the direction I went with this redesign. He's intelligent and charming, and the only one of the wizards I can actually imagine has the ability and or patience to sit down and bang out a smoky eye or paint his nails. Plus, he maintains that very interesting beard, so he must be at least a little used to having a look that requires a bit of upkeep. I do give him the beard, don't worry, I just forgot until the end after I finished recording. I like the idea of Anagan adopting a persona that is very elegant and regal feeling, with like the gold accents, luxurious mysterious cape and the heels adding to how he portrays it. I also think this vampire kind of look works well with his super speed, as he moves in a very inhuman way, gliding around effortlessly and with unnatural agility. He can be anywhere. He's a silent hunter. Season 1 was the audience's first look at magics, so the villain was tied deeply into the nature of the world. Now, in Season 2, we're spending a lot of time on Earth, so I wanted the antagonists to evoke a fear that is much more human. At this point, the Winx are much more comfortable using their magic, and they have official fairy schooling while the wizards just learned from the wizards before them. These men are not scary because of their magic. They're scary because of their methods. They each wear their own facade of normalcy, but what lies underneath is the kind of evil that each of us knows is all too real in our world. They desire to cause pain, to snuff out the light in the lives of others, to see themselves as extraordinary, no matter who gets hurt in the process. Not only do I think the wizards being scary less because of their powers and more because of their personality is a good contrast to Darkar, who was kind of the opposite, I think it'll lead nicely into the villain of Season 3, who's scary for both reasons. The wizards are supposed to have guarding the tomb of Valtor on their list of priorities, but after Gantlos' alliance with the Tricks, it was practically inevitable that he would be freed. Rather than being a deterrent or even obstacle for evil magic on Earth, the Wizards of the Black Circle act more as a prelude for things to come. Remember how I said earlier that I wished there was a through line regarding the four of them? Something to just tie them together a little bit more? I made them the Four Horsemen. Okay, well, they aren't literally the guys from the Bible, just inspired by them. If you don't know, the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse are characters from the Bible, the part in the New Testament where everything gets really scary called the Book of Revelations. It's at the end of the book when Jesus comes back, and this time he's pissed, and God and the devil have a big fight on their front lawn. I haven't actually read it, but I've read Good Omens. It may be my Catholicism jumping out again, but I just think the concept of the Four Horsemen riding into town signaling the end of days is cool. I guess it's part of why they're wearing stuff so different from each other too. In the original, they're very cohesive, but honestly, they're a little too cohesive. I know I just said I wanted more of a through line, but it looks like they just share one big closet, which honestly, they probably do. They probably have sleepovers all the time and just sleep in a big pile on the floor of their hideout. World's most toxic polycule. In my rewrite, they wear these costumes to protect their daytime lives, and each costume is highly personal and idealized, but they're still wearing costumes. They're all campy and very on the nose, but still so distinct from one another because they have totally different relationships with their wizard identities. So yeah, Gantlos represents conquest, Duman is war, Anagan is famine, and that means Ogron is left to represent the only writer to actually be named in the story: death. It would have been nice to just be able to give them the horses that they're already color-coded as, but I had to make sure they all made sense. I did so many iterations of them being different horses, but this was my favorite. Ogron just had to be death. He's the leader, the most imposing, the one who believes he really is just doing his job. The others search and hunt and kill, but Ogron is the reaper. He's the one there when the dust clears to tear out a fairy's wings and absorb her magic. I imagine his day job must be something along the lines of coroner or a mortician. He's comfortable and familiar with dead bodies and dissection. Ogron's powers of magical absorption work well with the death inspiration, I think. Maybe in this case, it isn't true absorption, but instead a power almost like that of Shota Aizawa, aka Eraserhead, where he's able to erase or snuff out spells and other magical attacks. Because of this, the most effective way to fight against Ogron is to wield a physical weapon, to wound him in the way of mortals, in the way of man. I think this is kind of what they were going for with his character in the original show, to have him be resistant to magical attacks so that the specialists would have a reason to even accompany Winx on missions at that point. Because post-Enchantix, these girls really should be unbeatable together. Like, convergence magic, come on. But I also feel that's just kind of the go-to for Winx villains a lot of the time. Stealing magic in some way. So I think he focuses more on canceling out spells. just to differentiate him from Darkar and Valtor a bit more.
Who here has counterspell?
I do.
For his design, I sort of went into the realm of steampunk a little bit. Someone who's a little too interested in biology and a little too comfortable around a scalpel. Someone who's well put together in their work clothes, but absolutely willing to do some dirty work. I usually give every character a little bit of blush because I feel like it just makes them feel a little more alive. But for Ogron here, I basically used gray. His skin is super pale already. I literally color picked from his original design too, which I rarely do for skin after my first Flora design ended up looking kind of orange, but I really wanted him to be sallow, ghastly even. I always thought it was weird that there was a white horse and a pale horse. I figured they were basically the same, maybe one was just pure white and one was cream, but it seems as though by pale, they didn't just mean light in color, they meant sickly, ashen, the color of the skin on a corpse left to rot. That's why his color palette is made up of a bunch of shades of baby barf green. I wanted it to evoke wet soil and worms and decay. I gave him a similar pose to Gantlos because of their narrative importance, so he's also facing the viewer head on, but instead of being confrontational and sizing you up, it feels like Ogron is looking right through you. It was hard for me to change Ogron's hair. The red suits him so well in the original show. I actually think I like his design the most out of all of the wizards, but I thought the lighter orange would fit better for this rewrite, especially since Duman's mohawk is redder now. Hair symbolism is so interesting, and as a massive Avatar The Last Airbender fan, I'm sure it's pretty unsurprising that I eat that shit up. I really like that when Bloom returns to Earth, the leader of her new foes has long, flowing hair that reads as a paler, duller version of her own fiery red. I know they look really different from their original versions, but guys, I love these designs so much. I feel like I captured the way each of them embodies a different kind of evil, a different part of the arsenal of fear that exists in our real life. I want it to seem like if these guys weren't chasing some distorted magical destiny, they would be showing up as staples in the world of true crime. The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse angle was kind of just a fun way for me to get really campy with their designs, seeing how I could integrate different alternative subcultures into the themes that come with each horseman. Also, them plus the tricks equals 7 and their 7 seals, and I don't know, I just thought it worked out. Speaking of, the tricks will be getting their Gloomix designs very soon, so stay tuned for that. And of course, if you enjoyed, please do all that fun YouTube stuff down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye!